Hello, everyone. This is the Paint the Town Red podcast. I am your host, as usual, Chance, and today we have a very special guest. It is Tommy Talks. Tommy Talks has an Instagram page. Do you have a TikTok and YouTube and all that, or what else do you got? Just Instagram, right?
I got to expand. No, I don't got anything right now. Currently got a Patreon, which got banned once, and then I re-put that one up, but I'm pretty sure it's going to get banned again. And yeah, I need to create some secondary accounts. That way, when this one eventually does get banned, I can, not be completely wiped off the face of the planet.
Yeah.
So
So Tommy reposts stuff. He posts stuff of his own. He's America First. And we are going to talk about a little bit of the news as well as Tommy and his journey and what he's got going on in the future. And I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Tommy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What caused you to be America First? How old are you? Where'd you grow up?
all right, so I'm 21 years old. I was raised in upstate New York, still live here. So, I mean, anyone that's not from New York, chances are when you think of New York, you think of New York City, where Mom Donamy's at. New York is a lot like California, whereas you have, a blue fucking city, and then you have a red everything else. So that's, basically what it is for us. So we're upstate. So we're the rest of the state. I mean, I started getting into politics when I was very young. I was in sixth grade when Donald Trump was elected president, and I was one of the only kids in the class that was like fighting with all the black kids, being like, no, Trump's pretty cool. I was like, maybe you should just like mind your manners and then you won't have any problems. But yeah, and then I went from that to I transitioned to Alex Jones, started watching a lot of his stuff, and then I really got, a bigger enchilada of understanding world government and that, things aren't confined to the national bounds of like reality. Like we have more strings that I didn't know were attached than before. And then from
Right.
there, I kind of started to figure it out myself. I didn't really have to be told as much, because when you're young, you're just basically taking in information. You're not really creating thoughts yourself. So from that point, I started having my own ideas, having my own stuff. I realized I was really good at talking, and I was basically informing everyone else about everything that was going on. And then I mean, I was raised Catholic, fell out of it pretty quickly. I don't think the church I was in was actually Catholic, especially being that the principal herself was a woman and a bitch. So, I mean, but I mean, I've refound my faith, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's where
Pretty
do I
much
go
it.
from there?
Okay. So yeah, there's something to be said about people that live in a blue state, that live in a red area. I think we're called to be a little bit more, how could I put this, radical,
Yeah.
because we see the pressing issue, we see the problems that comes from running and being in a blue state. And so we get online and we're like, hey, no, this is a problem now. Whereas people that live in like Tennessee or Oklahoma, they're like, bro, why don't you just chill out, man? And it's like, no, we can't chill out. We're being invaded. They're here now. They're corrupt now. And I'm watching my neighborhoods and everything else in my environment just get completely destroyed. And so I don't want to see that actually. I don't like seeing that. I was raised, and me being, American, a white male in America, I noticed that just everyday things are different for me. You and I, actually. I mean, we are taught from a young age, go to school, go to college. People like to say Americans are not educated, but white Americans are educated. They're actually the most educated in the world, actually. And so you have these ways of being, right? You go to the job site or you do these different things, and it's like we have an immense talent or a lot of invested in us because of our previous ancestors had instilled all of these things that we have today in society. And so I'm watching that, and I'm watching the comparison between me acting that way, having a leg up in a lot of different things, and other people not having that leg up because that's not their culture, that's not what their ancestors provided for them, but that is getting stripped away. They're taking that from us. And now you're seeing groups of, white people, you could say, Americans that don't like America, hate America, and they want to undergo a society that is third world. And it's not good for us. It's not good for our grandkids.
On you
I
cut out.
don't want to see that. I like to be talented, and I want my grandkids to be talented just as well. I want them to benefit from Western civilization. The Democrats, the anti-Americans, and the people of color want to rip that from us. That is perfectly reasonable for me to call that out and say, hey, I don't want that to happen anymore. Have you experienced that being in the state that you're in?
Yeah, I know. It's literally exactly what you just said. It's within every leaps and bounds of when I was in ninth grade, there was I mean, it was literally standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. You ever see the viral videos of those white ass niggas going hard as fuck, and they'll fucking sweep out the kid's legs from under him who's sitting down on a chair while the pledge is going off. He's like, stand for
Yeah.
the fucking pledge.
Right.
So, I was in a math class with like, I want to say half of the kids were black, the other quarter were Mexican. I was a minority in my own classroom, even though I live in a white country. You got the fucking Mexicans over here speaking Spanish while they're doing their math homework, and sticking to themselves. And then you got the blacks over there and they're selling weed and drugs. And, for whatever reason, because of like what you can't have, and this is what I found in every single part of this, because you're bringing up a really good point, which is that it's not just, and they said this during the Black Lives Matter movement itself, which was that this isn't about just supporting it or being neutral, right? Being neutral in their eyes is opposition. Like, you have to actively support it. You have to actively get on your knees. You have to actively, basically sell your soul to these people, to surrender your identity as a pure being in order to be accepted into the modern society that we have now. And they've been programmed to do this, whether they realize it or not. And it's not hard to see, especially being that, the second that I had even a little bit of a backbone, I ended up getting into probably a fight with every single one of them. And that didn't go very well because I don't know. You got any training? Do you train?
Yeah, I wrestled in college and I currently box. I fought MMA before. Yeah,
Yep.
got a little bit of training.
Yeah.
I think as smaller guys, I think you're kind of, that's what the bigger guys go to play football and the smaller guys go to wrestling and go to fighting. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I had an older brother. He was like 11 years older than me. So he knocked me out with a jab when I was in 7th grade. And I mean, this is the other thing too. Like, it kind of all
That'll
ties
do it.
in together because we do have, like, I feel like there's like two class of whites, because you brought that up too, which was that you have these white people that have never been in a fight in their life. They've never worked hard, like legit, like what the real definition of working hard actually means. They don't know
Mhm.
what sacrifice actually looks like. They don't realize like the gifts that they've been given, even though, we're being invaded. We're getting all of the stuff that we do have stripped from us. There are still things that make America America. And when it bleeds through, it's like, it's so pertinent and it's so pure. And it's something that you will not find anywhere else. And these gifts, they don't even realize that they're getting. And,
Yeah.
but so I think a big part of that too, though, is that, they've never been punched in the face.
Oh,
They
that's
don't
such
know
a
how
good
to,
point. It's like, this is the deal. We all know the
and I'm
rich
not calling
kids.
for an act of violence, by the way, seriously, you know.
We all know the rich, affluent kids whose parents are wealthy. They get into politics because it serves their dad's company's interests. They've never been punched in the face, and they don't even know what they're fighting for. If you look at the people that are a part of America First, that are saying, hey, enough. We don't want our heritage stripped. We don't. We want to be strong as a nation. Okay. If you look at those people, they're always the ones that are on the incline. They have no money and they're trying to get money, or they're trying to better their lives for their entire family and for their tribe. You
Yeah.
have these wealthy kids that, because they've gotten a pretty much a good hand in life, they want to just sell it away and they'll take deals from whoever. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing foreign influence and American influence. And you're seeing the foreign influence to start to seep into the right wing party as well. I know I posted something of the day. It was like, because one of the big questions I have written down here that we're going to talk about is Nick Fuentes sold out? Okay. Now, look, I do not think Nick Fuentes is sold out. I don't. And I know he's got some suspicious things going on. He talked about the CIA and all these things. I don't think he's sold out. I think he's gone
That was
through.
that was an off statement though. I mean, that was like,
Yeah.
you know,
When you're on stream for as much as he is, you're going to say things that you just don't recognize. You know what I mean? You just go, oh, whatever, you're saying it. I don't think he's sold out. I posted something about it in the Catholic Church. I was literally like trying to kind of shoot for the millennial. That's like a millennial talking point, right? That Nick's sold out and all these different things.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of, calling out to them and kind of making fun of them in a way. And somehow that was taken as like, no, I actually think Nick Fuentes was sold out. And even though he said things that are suspicious and weird, and we should pay attention to those things, I don't think he's sold out. And everybody was in the comments. There was two groups of them in the comments. One was like, I knew he was sold out. I knew this. I knew it. I knew it all along. And then their other kids were like, bro, this is a millennial take. And they're like Nick Fuentes fanboys, right?
Yeah.
And so I had these two opposing forces. But the main thing, and then there's like the Protestant and Catholic people going at it, of course. But the main thing we all have to recognize is that we need to be America first, and that recognize that there is foreign influence. There is lobbying, there's people lobbying for their home nations and their people, not Americans. You know, white people, when they get into power, they will lobby for the greater good of all Americans. Why? Because they believe that they are American. They don't say they're white Americans, they say they're American. And so they lobby for everybody. But you get the Indians that get into power. What do? They lobby for the Indian Americans. And that is why we need to be in the positions of leadership, not them, because they haven't assimilated in order to classify themselves as even American. They are other. And those foreign people that are influencing for their nation and for those people are taking advantage of that. And they mostly preside on the left. That is our common enemy, the left. There is so much infighting right now with the right. It really sickens me, actually. And you can't even say a joke. You can't even like say a meme or a joke or anything because everybody thinks you're sold out or that they take it seriously and now you're the enemy somehow.
But-
And then they keep doing this to where there's a bunch of little tiny small groups. You're doing exactly what the foreign influence people want you to do. You're infighting instead of focusing on the enemy at hand.
But do you think, I mean, honestly, like you kind of just said it, like a joke, right? If there's a joke that's being said and then you have people that are on the quote unquote right that are getting offended or that it's a problem, would you really consider them right wing? Like, is it what I see currently in our current political, the current political system that we have right now? I feel like the Republicans or the people that are on the right are really just left. And then you have the far left. So no matter which one you get, you're still getting a version of the left. And the other thing about it, it seems like it was built like this for like by design. You know what I mean? So when you have Democrats in power, they use it and wield it in ways that, that on Fox News, they've trained people at this point to like just be upset about it and get over it and then move on to the next thing to be upset about, get over it and move on to the next thing. Next thing, 20 years down the line, we've lost half of our things. You're allowed to, kneel for the national anthem. You can fucking, Israel's our greatest ally and, you get the point. But that's not even like that's more not mainstream. But my point is that the Democrats have been winning this entire time. I feel like the Republicans were just set up as a, pretending like they're controlled opposition. It's not a real party. During the presidential election of 2024, I had realized something when I was filling out my ballot. I actually made a post about it on my personal account. And this was before I had ever created Tommy Talks. I'm very new to actually like getting involved social media wise to this stuff. But in 2024, on the ballot in New York, when I went to go vote for the Conservative Party, had Donald J. Trump, right? Trump Vance. And then the rest of this list for the Conservative Party were all Democrats, every single one of them, like liberal Democrats that, were like for everything that we're against and that Trump and Vance are supposedly against for, right? So then you ask yourself, well, then why, like, how does this make sense? Like, if you're a conservative, you would want people that are Republican or conservative on that ballot. So then I went down a rabbit hole it took me a day. It wasn't even that hard. And I came to the conclusion, I went downstairs and I said to my dad, I'm like, Dad, the fucking Conservative Party is a literal sham. It is a money scheme. I was like, I looked up all of these people within just our county. They all have LinkedIns and they all have the same service that is required. And I don't know how many people actually know about this, but go to your fucking local representative's LinkedIn page and you'll see political consulting. Okay. So what that basically means is that he's going to take like K, 10K or whatever his fucking bargain is. So that way he'll do whatever you do his bidding and, he'll put a Democrat on the ballot and then we get this. And I'm not the only one that's had this outrage. It's been very small, but it does exist. But I think that the left, I don't think this is a right infighting. What I think it really is you have people that are actually America first, actually conservative, actually want to restore and maintain and preserve our values and our way, like our belief that we are a people and not just a nation of ideas, because these groups of people built this country. These groups of people, had expanded the country to what it currently is now.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, the thing about it too is that there's going to be money made in politics, but here's the big deal. You've got a group of people that was really small up until Nick Fuentes came on the scene. So to answer the question, is Nick Fuentes sold out? And what do I believe? No, I do not think Nick Fuentes is sold out. And this is why. None of us would know about any of this stuff if it wasn't for Nick Fuentes in the first place. None of it, we'd all still be MAGA. we'd all still be supporting the so-called machine that you think is paying Nick Fuentes in the first place. Does Nick Fuentes slip up? Has he made deal? Has he done something? I don't know. But for the most part, what he stands for is American identity, American sovereignty. And that is what I want to preserve. And I hope that's what you want to preserve too. You know, as a Christian, as a Catholic, you guys are so quick to be on your high horse and judge people. Didn't Jesus like stand against that?
Yes.
I mean, I get having standards. I get all that. But what are you going to do? Make your whole identity about, criticizing people who are not 100% Catholic or 100% Protestant or 100% Christian, and then the left just destroys us? Like, that makes no sense at all. Politically, logically, nothing. It makes no sense. So to answer everybody's question, no, I do not think Nick Fuentes is sold out.
Well, on top of that, just to add to your point, because I not only concur with what you say, but I'll just add to it, which is that the guy has been I have never seen someone that has been, I didn't know this existed, like this level of consistency. Like even with Alex Jones, he's jumped around a little bit. Like, you remember, like, it's a famous clip of Alex back in fucking, it's got to be like, I think the towers were burning. There was the background. The towers were burning. He's like, you know what? I'm fucking sick of Israel and these people, and they kill the Palestinians, right? So he was saying this then, and then something switched up. It had to do with the radio station. I mean, who was in control of the radio station at the time? Like, how did you, and I'm not saying Alex is sold out either. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that there was definitely certain things and like areas that, and Jake Shields brought this up too. By the way, no relation. My name is Thomas Shields, not related to Jake Shields at all. So what the fuck was I just saying?
You're saying about
Yeah. So
Alex Jones being sold out. Alex Jones is also not sold out, I don't think.
Jake Shields had said, he was like, why I just see, and there was an entire debate between him and one of the other hosts on InfoWars. And they had this whole conversation, and the InfoWars host was fucking like purposefully misunderstanding him. And this is the term that I love to use because that's what all of these people do. They purposely misunderstand us. They exaggerate it to such a large degree, and they say that we all want to kill Jews or whatever, So, but he gets on there and he says to him, why is Alex, like, it seems like he's purposely veering off of this one specific topic that seems to have a lot of relevance, right? And, that it was true. And it had to do with that radio station deal and him, having to, thread the needle so that way he didn't ruffle any feathers.
Yeah,
So
that's why I did my post, because I did my post about Nick Fuentes because I'm so annoyed with everybody having to have the same opinions all the time. And Nick just talked about this on his show. And I don't want to like repeat what Nick already said, but it's true. It's like, that's so boring. Can we all have different perspectives and takes on certain things? And it doesn't automatically mean we're sold out to the Jews and we're enemies of the state and all this. Dude, it means we have a difference in opinion. Like, that's why I think Nick Fuentes did the whole thing about Epstein, because he's like, man, this is retarded. Like, Epstein has aura. Dude,
but this is
if
my
he says
thing.
that, who cares?
But
honestly.
this is my thing. But this is my thing, right? So, like, because again, that's another great point. But like, with Nick, this is why I'm saying he's even different than Alex. This, like, I have never seen this before with anybody. Nick Fuentes has literally like been, other than like, if you watch the first video that he ever did where he literally said, by the way, for Trump, when Trump was first, he was like, and then Trump will fall out and then we'll let the rest get into politics when it actually matters. Like, he was fucking calling Trump a joke at the in his first episode of America First, whatever. Right. So, but since then he's been fairly consistent once he, put it all together, including the Epstein thing, because that was one of the biggest things that people used to hit him on, right? You couldn't hit him on being a womanizer because he's not having sex. He's a devout Catholic who's waiting for sex till marriage, which, by the way, in today's world, God bless him, because the amount of honeypots that guy could have got involved in are ridiculous. Let me know you're good. Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't want you, the clips to fucking get fucked up or whatever. You good?
Sorry, go ahead. My bad. It's my
No, you're fine. Yeah. So Nick has been consistent on that. He's always been like, he thinks that the 18, the age for 18 is like retarded. He looks at it biblically, like, 14 to 16, and listen, I mean, I don't want to seem like a pedophile, but honestly, I would like people say to me, and it's the weirdest thing ever. They go, I want a 25-year-old, experience. Like, experience. What do you, I was like, I don't want a ran through chick. I want her pure, fresh, and has no experience with other men, so that way I could show her the world, and that's that. So I get that perspective, but the point is, Nick has been on that track the entire time. Venezuela, he's been on that track the entire time. He's been saying this like years ago that we should be taking over Venezuela, taking their resources. I don't understand the whole thing because we do have an immense amount of oil reserves here, but I'm not too well versed in the sense of like, as I know there's different types of oil and I know it makes things valuable. And I know that the infrastructure that if it's not there can be a massive, investment required and time investment as well to actually begin to profit off of it. So if you don't have, what would you call it? If you don't have it, like the establishment centered around you, so that way you know that this will be sustainable, so that way I don't dump $200 million into this specific, thing that I want to profit from, and that in the next administration I'm just going to be kicked the fuck out of here. Why would I do that, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. And honestly, what that tells me is that they're just setting it up, like we've been seeing so far, for the left to get in, and it's going to be the perfect excuse for the Republicans to do absolutely nothing. And they're doing everything in their power to make sure that people vote left. You're muted.
Let me ask you this, Tommy. Let's get to the real, the brass tacks of things, okay? So you meet a 17-year-old. Are you going to be investing in early? Are you investing early in the stock in order to capitalize when she becomes 18? Or
Okay.
are you gonna respectfully back off and just wait till she's 18? What's your advice here?
So I'm going to say this in the sense because I am in America and I think people would be looking for any reason to put handcuffs on me at this point now. So I'm going to say this in a way that will keep me out of jail. I'm a good looking guy. I've been around people, but when it comes to this, it's like, I would say, I would just look at it from a Catholic or Christian perspective, right? If you're waiting till marriage to have sex, very rare. But if you are, then you have no problem, right? You can have a legitimate relationship with that girl. You can be older and there be no problem, because you're actually getting to know her. And then until you guys have finally made the decision, let's get married, she's already 18 at that point. That's the legal bound part of it.
Right.
Number two, I mean, we do also have, and I don't know the exact, like I think you have to be underage when you first meet her in order for it to be considered the Romeo Juliet law for when you're 18 and she's like 16, and for it not to be considered statutory rape, because that's basically what I'm trying to say. I don't want to get arrested for, and I've never done that. But no, I think that we should be, protecting these girls at all costs. I think in today's world, like, people say like women have more rights than ever, and I say, I feel like they got less. I was like, these girls can't fucking take care of themselves. We're making them do things that they've never had to do for the last 1,000 years. We've given them no resources and no tools. And like, we've told them that they're somehow equal to men in the sense of being able to comprehend and manage things mentally in the same way. Like, I'll just give you, a little statistic here. Like, I'm pretty sure it was, I forget her name. She was on the PBD Dangerfield, something Danger. Amy Dangerfield. She had said a great thing very recently. I think it was on the, I won't mention the name. She was on a podcast with Tate, and she had literally said to this bimbo, a woman, when she takes a teaspoon of cortisol, it takes her an entire day to process that, teaspoon of cortisol. For a guy, we can absorb that in literally 1 hour, be fine, and be ready for the next thing like nothing even happened. Because that's what we do. We're stress machines. We're workers. This is how, stress relieves stress for guys, people that actually work and that are actually building things and that, are that built this country.
That's a good point.
So, but to its core is, I think we need to protect these girls. I think if you can get a girl married by the time she's 18, never had to go into the workforce, never had to go to college where she gets brainwashed and enlightened, to then become, a promiscuous slut that's banging 5 dudes a week, is constantly looking for attention and having to be, gratified and
Well, there you
and
have it,
assured.
folks. Tommy Talks he's 100% in on grooming Max. You heard it here first. Get your grooming game up. You got to talk to these women and cash in. You got to get in early on the stock because, once they're 18, you're going to be competing against all these other guys. So,
Well, I mean, I don't know. It seems like that's becoming a more prominent thing too. Like with I mean, what's your thoughts on the James Fishback thing and his 50% sin tax in Florida?
I love the idea. I would say we should ban all that crap, but I mean, having the 50% tax, that's good, but they're just going to move to California or wherever. But so it kind of just take the money from the economy. I don't know. I think we should, if it's kind of one of those situations where you're like, well, as a state, it would hurt you because they'll just move to another state. So it's going to hurt you economically. Is it worth them hurting them economically in order to benefit? Because you're not going to be slowing down the market in any way. Like everyone's still going to be able to digest it in Florida. So it's still getting the negative effects. The only positive things of it is that they respend the money in Florida. So now you're just taking away the one benefit it had, but you still are left with the negative aspects of it because they're just going to go to another state. If you were in the federal government, that's when I'd be like, oh, great idea. Or just ban it outright. Let's
Yeah.
just ban it outright. But I'm kind of a radical when it comes to those things. I'm for freedom. I love freedom. Freedom's great. But I don't think porn is good. I think it's a sin. I think it's horrible for our younger generation or for our younger kids, especially males. And, it just hurts us. We're not strong with porn on every single phone that anyone can get a hold of. I mean, I don't agree with it. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it really comes down to classification and definition, right? I think the thing that these people like to use often, and I mean, I don't like the rabbis are very good. They're all lawyers, right? So they've been very good at, bypassing and misconstruing different parts of our law to make things okay and acceptable. For example, porn. Obviously it's explicit adult content and there are laws and provisions because at least we have some sort of a backbone that children, even though now they are all seeing that at the age of 11, there's laws in place where they're not supposed to be seeing that stuff.
Mhm,
But to classify it as an expression of speech or an expression of like, of content or media is
mhm,
complete and utter bullshit. I think that porn should be literally classified as a weapon against men that is causing them to not have kids, not go and get girlfriends, and
mhm.
not strive for anything. Because I mean, there was a time period when I was working so much, everyone was a teenager once and, your hormones are going crazy, whatever. I won't go into major detail, but when I was like, when I was like, I was 19, I was working so much that all of a sudden I was like, my God, I haven't watched porn in like literally 2 months. And then after that, I was like, I didn't even realize. And then I was like, I don't even want to go back. 'Cause
Mhm,
now I got everything under control. The hooks that were put in from it when I was in my youth, when I
mhm.
was vulnerable, have
Yep,
been removed.
right.
And, but not everyone has that. Like, not everyone has and I don't think they should have to go through, literally working so much that you have, like, 2 hours of sleep and then wake up and then continue to do that type of a thing,
Mhm,
in order to just remove porn. No, fuck
yeah.
that. It's a weapon. Ban it outright. Burn the books. We're gonna burn your books again because this shit is insane. And that it's prostitution at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It's just the only
So
difference
true.
between a prostitute and a porn star is that one has a video camera on her and the other one doesn't.
So
So,
yeah, I think to answer your questions, like, yeah, I'm in favor of anything that makes it harder for these people to do what they do, but I don't think it's going to solve the problem. And a matter of fact, I think it might even be worse off if we do that because, like I said, it will take away the one positive thing from it, but leave us with the bad stuff. So in that way, I go, I don't know. But just economically looking at it, and if you start asking yourself, what would you do if you were the governor? It's like, well, because now he's getting the effect of, like, making everybody mad in that industry,
mm,
rallying up all the left, rallying up all the younger people, right, against him, but he's not radical with quitting it either. It's like 50% tax. So now you're going, "Okay, so like I said, it's not getting anything done, it's rallying up the other side." It's kind of equated to it like Trump, acting like he's deporting all these people, but he's really not, and now the left is just up in arms having riots, but yet no one's getting deported. So he's getting all the negative things of rallying up the left, but then none of the benefits of actually deporting anybody. So it's kind of in that way, I kind of just disagree with that aspect. I say he should go harder. That's all.
I agree totally. I mean, not to like completely jump into this specific topic. I know that, you're like you're controlling the entire
Oh,
show,
go
but
ahead. No,
could
whatever
we
you want to
let's
talk about, let's do it. Yeah.
because I actually now that I'm just thinking about this out loud, literally right at this very moment, like, it seems to me because that's not one of the only policies that he's introducing. I mean, have you heard about I think it's a $30,000 Mamdani tax are you familiar with this one?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll tell you. So the $30,000 Mamdani tax that he wants to introduce is basically anybody that is in New York right now that had voted in that fucking mess, and the messes that have been created for the last 50, 60 years over there. Anyone that wants to move from New York to Florida or anywhere across the states to Florida will have to pay $30,000. What it's seeming to me, from my perspective, as okay, we're removing the filth, which you're right. Like there could be a potential negative side to it, in tax purposes, but I really don't even think it's the net, like, astronomical loss that people are getting on top of the fact that, I mean, in Florida, you got Miami. That place is a fucking that is literally, oh my god, I'm forgetting everything. I can't remember this guy's there's a book where all the gay it's inside the Bible, where all they would
Sodom
all
and Gomorrah,
Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Miami is literally Sodom and Gomorrah, right? You got sex on the streets, you know,
Pharisees.
it's like we're there. So I think he wants to remove all the filth. And it seems like he wants to basically section off and start to bring back what we used to have at one point. There was a reason that we had state constitutions. You know, people were, when they lived in a state, it wasn't like they just moved from New York to Florida. Like at one point, if someone was from New York and they were down in the South, that was a fucking problem. You're going to get your ass kicked. People lost their shit. And like, so from my perspective, like, I think that's a good idea because not only would we be able to bring on top of the national sovereignty back, but this is my thing is like, we have layers of structure of what the national identity is. The first and most important part of it was family. And then it expands from there into like your local neighborhood, your community, where the church is. So where everyone goes to, where like we're all, if somebody guy at the church has a flat tire, the community is going to be able to help him. Someone broke their leg, but they can't afford the medical bills. The community was going to help them, right? So you have it on that level, and then it goes to the county and to the state, right? So now you have state sovereignty, where you have a bunch of people within the state that recognize themselves as a Floridian or as a New
Yeah.
Yorker, or get the deal. And then
Mhm.
it goes from that point to the actual national identity of we are the United States. We're going to have our internal specific things where we're going to experiment and stuff like that, but we're still a country, right? But I think we need those layers of protection. That way, if there was ever a time where, during this time period where we were invaded, it's not like if we lost New York, it's like we're running around with a chicken with our head cut off. Like we have infrastructure in all of these other places. So that way we can, act independently, right? So, the way that we are now, it's like we really have moved towards this. And I guess that was during the Civil War, like this federalism, system where the states really don't have as much power anymore. So the fact that he's trying to bring back this much in these specific ways, I'm in full support of. And I think that anyone that is in Florida right now is going to be really happy. And I think anyone that really likes these policies is going to be moving to Florida ASAP before he gets in and puts that fucking tax on them. So,
Okay. A lot of politics. Let's talk about something a little fun. All right, I have a question for you. All right.
okay.
If you were standing by a pool and there was a black kid and a white kid drowning and you could only save one of them, you had
White
equal,
kid.
they were equally as close to you. Everything was on same, everything's exactly the same, but you only could save one. Who would you save?
The white kid without hesitation.
And why is that?
Well, actually, I would save the black kid because the white kid knows how to swim and the black kid probably doesn't.
The white kid will learn. Okay, so what
Well, the
tell
white
us
kid probably
why
already
you
knows.
would if they were both they were both drowning and going to die, why would you save the white kid?
Okay, so there's no them. Okay, they're drowning. Yeah, I'm going to save the white kid because I picked my own team, right? We have, again, like we were just talking about with the local community, state, right? It goes all the way up. There's another part of this that we haven't had in, 100 years since after, the fall of Germany was a national or a a white racial identity. That we used to have that. We used to be, we used to classify ourselves as white, used to hang out with white people, and that was fine. That was great. You could at that point have black power, Asian power, Mexican power, and white power, and that all be fine. But if you say white power today, you're a fucking racist. So I'm going to save my people because that's he's on my team. And honestly, it's going to sound callous and definitely racist, but from a net benefit factor, I think that in the grand scheme of things, he's going to be able to bring more good without as much assistance or recorrecting or potentially just complete and utter what we would call
Right. So
imprisonment.
economically, you think it'd be smarter. But here's the thing about this question because I heard this question actually get talked about on a recent podcast I was listening to, and it's not that's a hard question to ask, and it's even disgusting kind of asking it, especially from a Christian perspective. It's like, who would I save, the black or the white kid? No one wants to answer that, right? But the thing about it is that if you asked all black people that exact same question, the majority of them will select the black swimmer. If you ask all Indians, the majority of them, if it was an Indian versus white, they would select Indian. If you ask any racial group, they would choose their own race. White people are the only group of people that will not select their own race. They will either say, I will select the black person, or I'll let both of them drown. Or they'll come up with some other ulterior route to never, ever say that they will back their own people. That is where the problem lies. The problem doesn't lie with, oh, you're choosing, that's bad, or, well, that's a bad question, or this is unchristian of you. No, the problem lies with that every other race is conscious of their tribe, whereas white people en masse are not conscious of their tribe. That is what America First and this movement that we're a part of seeks to destroy. It's not that we're just online posting racial memes. It's more than that. When we say Hail Hitler, we're not saying that we condone all the things that Hitler does. It's that
Or
we're
supposedly
condoning
did.
white identity. That is what we are condoning. And so I think that's important to mention to some of the people that are maybe just listening to this, or they're newbies and they're kind of going, this is horrible. No, it's not horrible. If you look at what we're talking about, why do you think it's right that if a black person, you ask a black person the same exact thing, they say black people, but then when a white person says it, then all of a sudden it's bad? Doesn't that not make sense? And then you say, well, what does this even matter? Because it trickles down into all of society. You get white people that are in positions of power and they hire equal. They hire based on a meritocracy. But then you get a black, Asian, Indian, Native American, any other group, they will not hire based on a meritocracy because they don't see themselves as American. They will lobby. They will give the positions to their brothers and to their cousins and to whoever. That is where the problem lies. And now you have colleges not accepting white people in them to be cultural. You have all of these other aspects. It trickles down into everyday society, and that puts us at a disadvantage. And now you're seeing our population decline. This is a serious problem, okay? White supremacy is not a problem. Nazism and radical white dudes with beards on from the South are not a problem. The problem is that a quarter of Generation Z is missing. Actually, more. 1/3 of Generation Z is missing because of abortion. And the white population is on a decline and we're going to go extinct. That is our number one problem we face as white people. And unless you drop all this superficial bullcrap, we're not going to be able to solve it.
To add more to your point, I would even extend it to say the anti-racism, the inclusionary principles that we now have in today's society. This is not just about, equal selection, or even in those like blacks, Asians, Indians, Native Americans, whatever. There isn't even just them only picking their side or choosing their side, but it's also the active aggression that they feel like they should have against white people towards white people. They actively dislike, whether they realize it or not, hate white people. And this was in the entire thing. It is all about the hatred of white people. It is all about the removal of white people. And this is like, when we look at it from the grand scheme of things, like when you realize just how, when you realize your history, number one, and that if you were to think of any single time in history where you had the strongest warriors, the smartest people, the ones that, trailblazed through whatever, it was white people every single time. We're a fucking threat. We are, I don't want to say the master race, but we're really we're very capable, which is non-comparable to these other, races. The Chinese and the Asians, for the most part, they didn't start moving around until recently. That's why they have 99% Asian in them. And then you'll have like a little bit of like Filipino or whatever. Like you have such a little amount because they didn't move. They weren't the ones that had, taken a ship from Europe all the way to North America. That wasn't them. That was us, because that's in our DNA and that's what we do. And we're the ones that have built this country, and we're the ones that have expanded it to where it's at now. And if that is the biggest super weapon that we possess, the weapon that we hold that makes it so that way no one can really fuck with us, it's really, really smart to make sure that if you want to destroy a nation, so that way you can establish a globalist system where you have total control to remove the most innovative, most capable group of people from that nation and make them a minority and make them start to die out. Because once they're gone, you have free reign. The Jewish IQ, the Jewish group, which is, again, they are such they are a singularity. There is no group like them before or after. And it's why they've lasted for thousands of years. And I was just having a conversation with my father and my brother about this literally yesterday about how, we need to start moving like these fucking guys. I'm not saying that we need to start, you know, believing that other people are goyim and that, people are lower level, they're not human, right? Because we're Christians, right? So we can have compassion. But I do think that it is very important that we as a people, build an infrastructure around ourselves that is non-permeable to these outside, races because they already have their shit. And we've already let them into the country and we see how that's fucking gone. So if we're going to build an infrastructure, which we need to survive, we cannot let them in and we need to be selective and we need to say no, because that's the one thing that we haven't done for the last 100 years. And that's why you have these fathers who have daughters that are going around the fucking, the city street wearing nothing. That's why you have, the wives that get to go wherever they want. And the father can't say anything because he'll be arrested for domestic violence or because he said something bad to his wife. This was a purposeful attack on white people from start to finish. Whoever did it, I don't know the architects behind this entire thing, but it's incredible how it's happened because
The effect is definitely happening. Rather you want to pin it on whoever you want, I pin it on foreign influence, rather it be, China, Russia, Israel, Jews, whatever you want to call it. It's foreign influence. It's not American. If you're American, you love America, your identity is American, even if you're on the left. If you love America, you want what's best for America, then that is what I want to prioritize and try to weed out some of the foreign influence. That is what our founding fathers always, that was the number one thing they warned us about, was foreign influence. But I'll expand a little bit more, we'll move on a little bit
can
because
I ask you a
we're already
question?
45 minutes in. Oh, go ahead.
Do you consider just the Jewish ethnicity in and of itself as foreign? And I don't
No,
mean to go
well,
into
oh, I
JQ so
guess I
much, but
would. Yeah, I would, because, that's not to say that there are some Americans who have partial ancestry to places that are not European that I wouldn't say are American. I wouldn't suggest that. I think there are partial Asian European Americans, stuff like that. But I would say that when someone has Jewish heritage, we have to be extra careful on watching where their allegiance lies. Does it lie with Americans? Because there are people who backs their own. Same with the Indians and same with all these other groups. They back their own. And so we have to be precautious about making sure that, are they acting in America's interest or are they acting in their own tribe's interest? And so
yeah.
that's all I would say. I mean, who knows? Maybe they are American. Maybe they are. I mean, maybe they do have the interest of Americans. Maybe they love America. But you got to be careful. They're very tricky. They lie.
But
They'll
that's the
say
other
they
thing
are,
about
but
it
they're
too
not.
is that what is their definition of America? Because our definition of America and their definition of America are very different. I mean, these are the same people that, within their religion believe that borders should not exist and that they should actively, this is the other part of this too, which is that they are like we always used to talk about the Muslims only 10 years ago, and we used to say they're commanded by the Quran to blow up everything and murder everyone and destroy everything, but in all actuality, it is in their text that they have to, bring good upon the world. They have to actively do this in every way that they can, right? And in some cases, this looks really beautiful, right? You have, a couple, like, you have a lot of medics or whatever, like, and then they go and, like, help people and stuff like that. Even though I've seen myself them abuse their fucking ambulance powers to basically cut red lights and fucking, to go wherever. But that's beyond the point. But the other part of this is like, this is why when they get into these positions of power, their definition of America is non-determined. Like it is again, foreign. It's foreign. It is not the same definition that we have as Americans, real Americans. And this is like my little test that I always like to use in order to really identify an American, which is it's really simple. It's like, okay,
You do it on
you're
me. Do it on me. Ask me that, and I'll tell you. I'll do the questionnaire. Do whatever test on me so we can see if I'm American or not.
Well, no, I know you're American, but I'll do it for the. I watched the show and I remember, but I'll ask you when did your family come here?
In six,
And then one of your ancestors that fought in the Revolutionary War, correct?
yep, he's a leader of a militia. Yep.
What was his name?
Thomas Minton.
Like if we looked him up in the history books, like would
Yeah.
he? He's
You can
that.
look up Thomas Minton, but what you wouldn't find like a whole thing about him. You would just find like the old Revolutionary War, like what would you call that? Like war documents where it shows the list of all the people that have were in the war. and then you'll see he was the top of a militia in Bertie County, Virginia.
Yeah.
Or is it North Carolina? Wait, no, I think it's Bertie County, North Carolina. Because remember, 1620, that wasn't the revolution. That was before. 20 to 40 is when the majority of English people came to America, or a lot of them, because there was a civil war going on in England, and they were fleeing the Civil War. That's when George Washington's parents came here and everything else. And then their kids are the ones who fought in the Revolutionary Wars. They were already here for a generation, or even sometimes 2 generations.
Yeah, I mean, it was like as if because they got left alone. Fucking all the British troops and everything had left. They were left to fend for themselves, you know? I mean, that is pretty, like, listen, you're more American than me in that sense. But this isn't even the test that I like to use, right? Like, the test is so simple. It's like you just say, okay, if I ask a person, what are you? And they say, oh, I'm African American. Okay, so you're not American, you are African American. If I ask a Jew, what are you first? Are you a Jew or are you American? Like, which one comes first, right? Because in Americanism has our fucking Constitution was literally based on God-given rights. It is in our Constitution. Like, the Christian is tethered and tied and weaved in with it. So if someone's saying they're a Jew before they are an American, then you have your answer right there. They're foreign. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
But this goes for every single one of these people, is that they're not actually American, and I think that right now we have to get, like, again, really, really strict on that definition. And, like, that's one of the things, not to bounce back and forth a lot, like, that Nick Fuentes is currently doing right now with the movement, which is like, he's taken some pretty hard takes that's, pissing off a lot of people. And I think it is somewhat purposeful. I like it because he said it. We have too many people that are not white in here. We have too many people in here that are, Muslim. We have too many people in here that think that this is just about bashing Israel. Like, no, this is America first, American identity, white people taking back what was originally theirs that has been stripped from us, including our identity, proclaiming the name of God without having to fucking, be constricted by the law. Like, did you know that on the White House grounds, you cannot, put a cross in the White House lawn? But do you know that for the last, like,
KKK probably?
Who knows? But I do know that they have put up, what's the Hanukkah thing? I'm forgetting all the
Yeah, the
names.
little candle with 4 candle thing that looks like this. Yeah.
That's it. That's up every year, which just goes to show you who's in power.
Yeah,
But-
exactly. Well, let's get to some of the news before we get too long in this thing. We're already an hour in. Right? We can talk
Oh,
all
wow.
day long about politics, our personal beliefs. Let's kind of get some of this news so that way everyone knows kind of what's going on in the America First movement. So right now we have a general strike protest in Minnesota. Only 7,000 people around have been actually removed from the Minnesota area. And yet there are giant protests. There is a mass exodus from businesses, schools, and everything else for a measly 7,000 amount of illegal people here. We need to up that by a ton more because we are getting so much bad press for nothing. I mean, literally, we're never going to get these people out if we're working this slow. We've got to work a lot more diligently, a lot quicker. And no matter what, they're still going to call us Nazis. So right now, what I can't help but to think, though, is that these protests are going on. The girl got shot by the ICE agent. What happened to the Minnesota fraud? What happened to that? What happened to the Somali fraud? We found out that Ilhan Omar, in fact, did marry her brother in order to fraudulently get him immigrated to America. She lied. She committed fraud. Why is she still here? Nothing will happen to her. I can bet $100 to anyone here. Ilhan Omar will not get deported. She will remain a Congress member, and she might even get promoted because these people who run our nation are feeding us lies, and they're doing whatever they want to do behind the scenes, no matter what. No matter what's in the news, no matter what's going on with these protests. And that's why you see Trump saying, I didn't know Somalians had such a low IQ, but apparently they have a good enough IQ to fraud us all, okay? That he says those things and we go, yeah, that looks awesome. What a beast. That's all. What a based guy. No, not a based guy. Because if you look at all the H-1B visas that he's bringing into the country, well, that's the Democrats that he can't stop. No, it's the Republicans. Look at all the H-1B consultants that are bringing the Indians here. They're all in Texas. They're all giving to Republican candidates in the most red-based state. We are being lied to. They fund both aisles of the party. And the people that are within those parties that sell out to them are the ones in positions of power. And that is why you have them telling you that the Somalians have low IQ and we need to get them out of our country, but yet none of them ever leave. They're not getting out of our country. And meanwhile, they're opening the back door and letting a bunch of Indians come in. We are being lied to. And that is what we need to be focused on. Not Nick Fuentes went on a date with a cat woman or a cat guy 16 years ago. Who cares about that? Why don't we focus on what Trump and what the Democrats are actively doing, which is genociding and killing American sovereignty? That is what we need to be focused on.
I'm going to add to that even more. There was 5 Republicans. There was a bill crossed to the floor. 5 Republicans who had said no for enforcing and mandating government IDs, like identification checks for voting. So illegals or so that way you can actually prove I am an American citizen voting on this election. 5 Republicans voted against this. So yeah, again, you're totally right. They're not on our side. They're on a completely different side. And to add to the other thing, when it comes to Minnesota specifically, because you said, what happened to the Minnesota fraud? That's a great point, because I don't know what happened to it back in 2018, because we knew about this and it was reported back in 2018 and it kept going on, right? I don't think Nick Shirley, this is the thing about it, man. Like, I don't think Nick Shirley fucking actually had the groundbreaking, intellect to be able to figure that out. I think someone said to him, all right, Nick, it's time. We need to fucking make a distraction because we just fucking covered up all of these Epstein files and terribly did it. So we need to make everyone think about this Minnesota fraud before, they start losing their minds over these Epstein files that we promised them that we would release, that we haven't released, and that we've, have done such a terrible job that not only did you fail in the first thing that you said was the excuse, which was that, oh, we don't want to show the victims, but then fucking blatantly, exposed like 3 victims in the first release, but actively covered up all of the officials that were on that. And that was the other thing that wasn't brought, that was a part of the, of this this Freedoms of Information Act, was that we were supposed to get an exact list. Like, it wasn't supposed to be just spanned out in the documents, millions of documents, which, by the way, we've only received 1% of the total documents. Obviously, probably never get them. But we were supposed to receive one document with a literal list of every single person that was on or inside of the Epstein files that we never received. So I think that this entire thing, this entire Minnesota thing, was a complete and utter distraction. And on top of that, there was a guy, I'm forgetting his name now, but he had he did the same documentary in upstate New York, where I'm located, somewhere around here, because we have the Jews, they like to, again, they like to be near the city or where the powerhouses are. There's a place in upstate New York where it is 100% Hasidic. You cannot move there because no one will sell you a house because you're not Jewish. Over 70% of them are on welfare. They're sucking out literally, I don't want to overestimate, because I don't want to be that to be used as discrediting what I'm saying. I'm just going to say, I think it was $133 million this community was actively sucking per month from this little county, and they get away with it. On top of that, not only are they all on welfare and are constantly getting government subsidies, but they're also simultaneously getting private schooling, private buses. None of them work. They all go to the church and just practice the fucking Torah.
Yeah.
They don't
and
work.
I think once you hear about some of these things we're talking about, you immediately go, oh my gosh, everything is a conspiracy, and you go schizo mode. That can also be a mistake and used as a distraction, because there are times that the nation is acting in America first, and those times are used to say, hey, look, see, a little carrot for you, so you stop focusing on it. We're destroying your sovereignty, and the white race is going extinct. We're taking Greenland. Oh, that's great for white people, right? Or, oh, Gavin Newsom's getting in a battle with Trump, and it's all fun and games. You can look at those moments, comment on them, and go, you know what? Trump did a good job. He really schooled him there. Or, oh, I actually like Greenland. I agree with that. It's not always a Jewish ploy or some grand conspiracy all the time.
But this is
Now,
what I'm
are
saying.
there aspects of it of where they're going to make money? Yes, but they make money in every time we turn a corner. Every time someone farts, they make tons of money, okay? But with the stuff that we need to be focused on, the stuff that we need to be ultra laser focused on, is not grilling everybody about talking about Greenland or Venezuela or Davos. We need to be ultra focused on when they act that kills our sovereignty. Distracting us with all these things is one thing, But when they are not deporting people, but acting like they are, when they are acting like Somalians have low IQ, we need to get them out, but none of them are getting out at all. And then H-1B visas are coming in. That is what we need to be laser focused on, because that is what's killing us. That is where they're taking advantage of all of this hype job. They're selling us this product, but we're not getting the product. Stop talking about the sales part of it. The sales part of it is the sales part of it. That's good. Yeah, we want all those things too. We want Greenland. We want Venezuela. We want to protect ourselves. But we also really, really want to still be American. We also really, really want white people to not go extinct and to America to have our own nation, sovereignty. We fought against the British, white people, to be separate. We are not a globalist nation. We are a group of people. Your last name means something. What your grandfather did means something. Respect him, be a man, and stop falling for all this gay Jewish propaganda. Because, you sit at home, and this is what I see a lot. You sit at home and you have all these guys that are like, yeah, we'll pass on racist jokes, hilarious, hilarious. And then they go home, and because their wife pretty much runs their life, they'll go home and they'll be watching a Netflix show where, this racial thing will happen. And they'll be like, hey, what's going on with that? And the wife will be like, hey, but black people are actually cool. And they go, yeah, you're right, hon. You're right. All that racist Nick Fuentes stuff, those guys are just corny. Because you're not going to get laid unless you do that. Stop doing that. Be the man of the household. It starts with being masculine and cleaning your own bedroom. That's what I think.
And telling her to shut the fuck up. But
grab the coffee cup and bash it on her head.
my God.
It's simple.
I don't even think it's really like it.
And groom your 17-year-old neighbor, okay? Because you got to cash in. You got to get in early on the stock, all right?
Listen, they find me. I don't find that. I actively avoid them, all right? I guess my address is very easily findable. I don't know. But I want to hit, I'm going to nail every point that, you just made. First thing is that, number one, I wasn't saying that whole thing over there in the upstate New York area was a Jewish conspiracy. I'm not saying that you said that, but I just want to make this very clear, right?
Yeah, no, I know you were.
Because what my point to that whole thing there was that you have the same exact thing occurring that another reporter did actually expose that we didn't know about before, that received zero media attention and had zero traction whatsoever. Therefore, it's manufactured and purposely being pushed because we need this other distraction. And it also fills the other checkboxes and categories of, not liking a foreign group of people that we can actively identify by their skin color. Whereas and I don't mean to go back to the Jews, that's one of the reasons that they did this, was because they knew that it would be much more difficult to be able to pick. If you have 10 white people in a room and one Jew, you're going to be able to know who the Jew is pretty easily. If you have 3 white people in the room, 1 Jew, and then you have everyone else that is Mexican, Black, Asian, it's going to be a lot harder to identify that Jew because, your filters are all off. They're not as much there as they were before. You can't really tell which one's not like the other when none of them look alike. That's why they actively love the civil rights movement so much. And they say that it benefited them because it allowed them to then therefore infiltrate the institutions and get to where they wanted to be after they had gained so much prominence through the Hollywood scene, because they weren't allowed to go into the banks because all the banks at the time were Christian. We actively denied them because we understood the threat then and we forgot about it until they took it over. But so that's the first point. The second point is, this is the important one, which is that you're right. You're 100% right on the fact that, yes, we want all these things. We do want our national sovereignty. We do want to our kids to look like us. We don't want to go extinct. We want to maintain what it means to be an American. But I feel like as I see this whole thing, it just hits every single perfect, layer on the way down and through the timeline, which is that, number one, you're satisfying the people that voted for you that aren't as informed as you and me would be, usually the older generation that are just watching the news or just on the True Soldier or whatever. They're not and they're just, they're hardwired into their own lane. They can't really jump out, right? They don't see a world where, like George Washington said, where we don't have the two-party system that he also said, by the way, not only was it foreign influence, but the other thing that he said would destroy this country was a two-party system. He said that a two-party system would split us apart and cause a civil war where we would all murder each other. So you have, what you have is these people that they're not fully engaged, right? So But Trump can keep them happy with the media spin, right? So he pumps up these to make it look like we're deporting all of these people, and like they're getting all kicked out. Not reporting the numbers. It's only 329,000 or whatever that are actually getting deported, right? So you've kept now a good majority of your voter base happy, which is good for like keeping, morale up among the base. So that way they'll get out in the midterms and vote for you again. But simultaneously, and even though they won't win, but simultaneously, you're not actually deporting anybody. So all of the lobbyists and all the special interests get to keep their fucking immigrant workers, paying them like $0. The H-1B guys, they get to keep paying their workers shit money and not hiring an American that could have that job and not be on the unemployment line. So you get to do that. Also, simultaneously, though, you are building up the left. You are pissing them off so much that they have to actively organize and rebuild what was fractured during the 2024 election. They got crushed. I mean, does anyone this was a time period where if you said you were a liberal, if you said you were voting for Kamala, you were laughed at, and after they lost, they disappeared. I didn't hear from them for like 4 months. And, but now we've just basically given them all the building blocks, all of the tools necessary to be able to come back with a moral high ground because we were so bombastic. And I think it was purposeful. So that way, when we lose the midterms and they do get back into power, the Republicans won't do anything, because I don't think that this is a left versus right. I think this is a left working with a farther left. Because now once you have a farther left in, they can, handcuff the president basically and not allow him to do anything until the next presidential election comes into play, where then they're going to push for J.D. Vance, who's, a protege of Peter Thiel. So that way they can get the AI lockstep into place. That was a Rockefeller Foundation book from 2011. I think it was, I have it right there, but I'll give that to you as a source. You could put in the link in the description or whatever, where they talked about this. This was something that was written in 2011 for 2030. And one of the 4 outcomes was if the people were very resistant to totalitarianism, to change, to globalism, that the only thing that they would be able to do to implement what they want would be this lockstep solution, which would be brought about, and this is in the books in 2011, through a virus pandemic that would then therefore, for the purpose of safety, restrict everyone and condition them out of fear and the essential need for national health, so that way no one dies, to then remove all of their rights, install a surveillance state, so that way we can see every single thing that they're doing. And now we see this now with Palantir. We see this with all of the social media companies, which if you go back in history during this time period, I mean, I think it was the guy from Napster, right? The guy that had founded Napster, who was also the same guy that was considered like the key architect of Facebook. I'd have to find his name. Like I could probably pull it up, but he was on paper, he rejected the CIA. He said that he never had any ties with the CIA. You dig deeper, this guy was heavily involved with the CIA. He got caught hacking when he was 16 years old. He had done a ridiculous amount of damage. That guy was fucking going to be he could have been put in jail. So they had him on the hook. They could make him do whatever they wanted. So with all of these social medias that came up, they understood the human brain. They hacked it for the first time ever to keep us in our attention, tracked on that, made it so that way we were willing to give up all of our information to this social media that they could then sell. But that's just the shell. It's really just about gaining as much data and information about people as possible. And it all goes back to the same people. Peter Thiel, CIA contractor, all that data goes back to the CIA. Social media, all of them have CIA backings, all goes to the CIA. So at the end of the day, no matter what stratosphere you look at this as, you have an intelligence that you have an intelligence state. This is not real politics. This is them picking and plotting their spots.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that all made sense. That was a lot of stuff. But
yeah. I mean, Kennedy talked about that, and a lot of people have talked about the intelligence agencies, role that they play. But I know we're doing 10 minutes now, so we'll let you go, Tom. I know you're a busy guy. We could talk all day long. We're going to have Tom on again, guys. Love talking to Tom. Make sure to follow him on Instagram. It's Tommy Talks. What is it? Just Tommy Talks?
Tommy Talks, like Tommy with a dot and then an underscore talks. But if you just look up Gen Z base representative, I'll pop up too.
Perfect.
Chance.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
pleasure.
This is the Paint the Town Red podcast. We will see you tomorrow.